The crystal chandeliers sparkled above the Bennett family mansion as Sarah Jenkins smoothed her simple cotton dress nervously. Nervous smile. Michael's mother Victoria swept past her without acknowledgement, while his sister Amanda whispered loudly to cousins clustered near the marble fireplace. Sarah had married Michael 3 years ago in a quiet ceremony that his family barely attended, choosing instead to vacation in the Hamptons that weekend. The message was clear then and remained unchanged. She wasn't good enough for their golden boy. "Michael, darling," Victoria called across the sprawling living room. "Why don't you mingle with the Worthington daughter? She's recently divorced and quite successful in finance." Dismissive laugh. Sarah felt the familiar sting, but kept her composure. Michael squeezed her hand gently, his eyes filled with apology and defiance. "Mother, I'm exactly where I want to be," he replied firmly, pulling Sarah closer. Amanda approached with her usual condescending smile. "Sarah, sweetie, that dress is so quaint. Did you make it yourself?" Mocking tone. Her entourage giggled behind manicured hands dripping with diamonds. "It's from a local boutique," Sarah answered quietly. "I prefer supporting small businesses." "How charmingly frugal," Victoria interjected. Cold laugh. Michael could have married Caroline Ashworth, who runs 3 charitable foundations, or Elizabeth Monroe with her art gallery empire. Instead, we get someone who shops at boutiques. The living room fell into uncomfortable silence as other family members pretended to admire expensive paintings. Michael's jaw tightened, but Sarah touched his arm, signaling him to stay calm. She had endured worse over the years. Uncle Richard raised his champagne glass. "At least tell us, Sarah, what exactly do you do all day while Michael works himself to exhaustion at the firm?" Sarah opened her mouth to respond, but Amanda cut her off. "She probably watches television and clips coupons." Cruel laughter. "I mean, look at her. No jewelry, no designer labels, nothing that suggests she belongs in this family." Michael stood abruptly. "That's enough, Amanda." Victoria raised her hand dramatically, silencing Michael before he could defend Sarah further. "Darling, we're simply being honest." Condescending smile. She turned to Sarah with ice in her eyes. "You understand, don't you, dear, that we only want what's best for our son?" Sarah nodded slowly, feeling the weight of 3 years crushing down on her shoulders. She had chosen this path deliberately, walking away from everything to find genuine love and connection. Yet here she stood being judged as worthless. "I actually think it's time we address the elephant in the room," Uncle Richard announced loudly, ensuring everyone heard pompous tone. "Michael, you're a successful attorney from one of Chicago's most prominent families. Your wife should reflect that status, not diminish it." Amanda circled Sarah like a predator examining prey. No prestigious education, no family connections, no career achievements. She counted on her fingers mockingly, sneering. "Honestly, Michael, what were you thinking when you married her?" Michael's face flushed with anger. "I was thinking I found someone genuine, someone who loves me for who I am, not what I represent." "How romantic," Victoria drawled. Sarcastic laugh. "But romance doesn't maintain social standing or business relationships. The Harrisons stopped inviting us to their annual gala because they found your choice of wife peculiar." Sarah's hands trembled slightly, but she maintained her composure. She had built empires, learned to negotiate with corporate giants, survived boardrooms filled with skeptics. This was different, though. These attacks came wrapped in family obligation and false concern. "Perhaps Sarah could take some classes," Aunt Margaret suggested from the corner. Fake sympathy. "Etiquette training, maybe some fashion consultants. We could mold her into something presentable." "She's not a project," Michael snapped, his protective instincts fully engaged. Victoria stepped closer to Sarah, invading her personal space. "Tell me, dear, what exactly did you do before marrying my son? Surely you had some sort of employment." Part 3. The storm intensifies. Sarah met Victoria's challenging gaze steadily. "I worked in technology development," she answered simply without elaboration. Amanda burst into laughter, mocking. "Technology development? That's adorable. Did you work at some little startup in someone's garage?" "Something like that," Sarah replied, keeping her voice neutral and calm. Michael squeezed her hand supportively, knowing she hated discussing her past. Uncle Richard leaned forward with exaggerated interest. "And this technology job, did it pay well enough to contribute anything to your household? Or does Michael support you entirely? The question hung in the air, sharp and accusatory. Several family members leaned in, awaiting Sarah's response with barely concealed contempt. Michael opened his mouth to intervene, but Sarah gently shook her head. Michael and I have separate finances, Sarah explained quietly. I contribute equally to our household expenses. How progressive, Victoria said icily. Dismissive wave. Though I can't imagine what kind of contributions someone with your background could possibly make. Michael earn 7 figures annually at the firm. Amanda pulled out her phone, scrolling deliberately. I've searched for you on social media. Sarah Jenkins is such a common name, but I found nothing. No LinkedIn profile, no professional presence, no digital footprint whatsoever. Suspicious tone. It's almost like you didn't exist before meeting Michael. Sarah remained silent, knowing anything she said would be twisted into further ammunition against her. The truth was, she had carefully scrubbed her online presence years ago, choosing anonymity over recognition. Maybe she's hiding something, Aunt Margaret whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. Gossiping tone. Michael stood abruptly, pulling Sarah up with him. We're leaving, this has gone too far. Sit down, Michael, Victoria commanded, her voice sharp with authority. We're not finished discussing your unfortunate marriage. Before Michael could respond, the ornate front doors burst open dramatically. A distinguished man in an expensive tailored suit strode in, carrying a leather briefcase. Confident entrance. Mrs. Sarah Jenkins, the man announced, his voice cutting through the tension like thunder. I apologize for the interruption, but we have urgent matters requiring your immediate attention. Victoria turned sharply, outraged. Excuse me, this is a private family gathering. Who are you and how dare you barge into my home uninvited? The man produced a business card, extending it to Victoria with professional courtesy. Robert Mitchell, senior partner at Mitchell Hayes and Associates. I've been Mrs. Jenkins's legal counsel for the past 12 years. Amanda scoffed loudly, disbelieving laugh. Sarah has a lawyer from Mitchell Hayes. That's one of the most expensive firms in the country. Stop lying. Robert's expression remained neutral and professional. I assure you, madam, I don't lie. I've managed Mrs. Jenkins's patent portfolio, intellectual property rights, and investment accounts since she was 23 years old. The room fell into confused silence. Uncle Richard spoke first, skeptical tone. Patent portfolio. What kind of patents could someone like Sarah possibly hold? Robert opened his briefcase, extracting several documents. Mrs. Jenkins holds 47 patents in artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and cybersecurity infrastructure. Her innovations currently power systems used by 70% of Fortune 500 companies worldwide. Victoria laughed nervously, uncertain. This is ridiculous, Michael. What kind of joke is this? Michael stared at Sarah, his eyes wide with surprise. Sarah, he whispered, shocked. Sarah finally spoke, her voice steady and clear. I founded Nextech Solutions in my garage when I was 21. We developed revolutionary encryption algorithms that transformed digital security. I sold the company for $3.8 billion when I was 26. Amanda's phone slipped from her hands, clattering on the marble floor. Stunned silence. Robert continued methodically. Since then, Mrs. Jenkins has invested in 32 successful startups, served as an anonymous angel investor for women in technology, and established scholarship funds for underprivileged students. Her current net worth, including real estate holdings, stock portfolios, and venture capital investments, exceeds $8.2 billion. Victoria collapsed into the nearest chair, her face pale, speechless. I chose to live simply, Sarah explained, looking around the room at the shocked faces staring back at her. Part 5. The Truth Unveiled. I walked away from that world because it was hollow and meaningless. Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength, emotional but controlled. Everyone wanted something from me. Investors sought my money. Competitors wanted my patents. Socialites craved my status. I was exhausted from people valuing what I had instead of who I was. Robert placed another document on the coffee table. Mrs. Jenkins donated over $2 billion to various causes under anonymous foundations. She personally funded the construction of 12 schools in underserved communities and established medical research grants that have saved countless lives. Amanda stared at the papers, trembling. But why would you hide this from us? Sarah turned to her with calm dignity. I wanted to know if Michael's family could accept me as a person, not as a bank account. Unfortunately, today proved exactly why I kept my past private. You judge me as worthless, based solely on appearances and material displays. Michael pulled Sarah close, his eyes glistening, proud and emotional. You never had to prove anything to anyone, he whispered. I've always known your worth. Victoria stood slowly, her arrogance crumbling into embarrassment. Ashamed. Sarah, I don't know what to say. We've been unforgivably cruel. You taught me something valuable today, Sarah said, addressing the entire family. You revealed that your respect and acceptance were always conditional, always dependent on wealth and status. That's not family, that's a business transaction. Uncle Richard cleared his throat awkwardly, humbled. We made terrible assumptions. You did, Sarah agreed. But perhaps this moment teaches all of us something important. True character isn't measured by designer labels or social connections. It's revealed in how we treat those we believe have nothing to offer us. Amanda approached cautiously. Apologetic tears. Can you ever forgive us? Sarah considered the question carefully. Forgiveness is possible, but trust must be rebuilt through actions, not words. Michael embraced her passionately. Loving, I'm so proud of you. What we learn. This story teaches us profound lessons about judgment, prejudice, and authentic human worth. The Bennett family's cruel behavior stemmed from superficial values, measuring people by external markers instead of internal character. Their assumption that wealth and status define someone's value blinded them to Sarah's genuine qualities, intelligence and compassion. Sarah's choice to hide her wealth wasn't about deception, but self-preservation. She had experienced how money corrupts relationships, turning genuine connections into transactional arrangements. Her decision to live simply tested whether people could love her for herself, not her fortune. The family's immediate shift from contempt to embarrassment upon learning Sarah's net worth reveals their moral inconsistency. Sarah remained the same person before and after the revelation, yet their treatment of her changed dramatically. This hypocrisy exposes how shallow their values truly were. Michael's unwavering support, despite social pressure, demonstrates real love. He defended Sarah when she appeared to have nothing proving. His commitment wasn't conditional on status or approval from others. True partnership means standing together against adversity, not abandoning someone when they're vulnerable. The story ultimately reminds us that rushing to judge others based on appearances, wealth, or social standing reflects poorly on our own character. Everyone deserves respect regardless of their economic status or outward presentation. Authentic worth comes from kindness, integrity, generosity, and how we treat those who cannot benefit us materially.